Hmm.
I'm over it. I want to go to sleep. Not really. I want to watch some YouTube before I go to sleep. That's actually exactly what I want to do right now.
This nigga literally waited for the guns to come out to pounce.
What do you mean?
Yeah, to pounce on the dip.
Bruh, I have to, if I'm not eating, I have to at least sleep normally. I literally come here, bro. I come, I destroy, and I leave. And I don't elaborate. No, I come, I destroy, I don't elaborate further. Howdy.
Um, the whole kid thing. You're jacking that if there was no more reason for you to be here. Okay, yeah.
No, wait, hold on, Jay, stop it. I'm totally serious. I'm off this like soft dicks. I'm sorry.
Alright, good night.
I don't want to engage in any meaningful conversation. That's exactly where this is going.
That's right.
Just stay while you listen to YouTube. What's wrong?
Yeah. We gotta run away for it.
That's like lying. Like, that's the same thing as lying.
No, just we enjoy your company even if you're tired. Why leave?
You wouldn't have my company. I wouldn't even be listening to it and meet you.
Fuck it,
And then
mute
I
us.
just say goodbye again when I go to sleep.
Then it's still like you're here, basically.
Also, I'm not going to be on my computer. I'm not wearing this headset on my computer.
Actually, not like you would be here at all.
Yeah. Alright, dude. I want you to do stuff you don't want to do, so just do whatever you want to do then.
Maybe if we were talking about me or something less meaningful, I'd stick around.
I'd rather you do stuff that you don't want to do.
Yeah, do stuff you don't want to do, Artie. For us. For your kids. For your kids, dude.
Huh?
Like, stick around for your boys.
Fuck no, bro. I hate them niggas. I only care about myself.
Dude, but what about your kids? Are you gonna say that about your kids? Are you gonna stick around for your kids? How are you gonna stick around for your kids if you can't even stick around for your boys?
It's true.
Dude, you gotta learn sacrifice and stuff like that.
So it would be easier.
You don't care about your kids?
I said I would care about them way more, so it would be a lot easier to stick around for them.
Alright, well then get some practice first. If you do it for us, then it'll be way easier when you care about them way more. Then you'll know you'll get to stick around, right? It'll be
I don't think so.
It'll be better to practice.
I don't think so. That's like saying it's easier to work out than it is to eat.
No. That's like saying it's easier to lift. If you lift like 100 pounds by yourself, then it's easier to lift 50 pounds in a competition. That's what it's like saying. That's the best analogy.
I don't think so. Yo, Michael, goddamn it, no, I'm not getting roped into Ali Shuffle.
Dude, you're already roped into the a la shuffle. You better stay, and now you have to wait till it finishes.
Alright, good night, guys. I love you.
Love you, Brody.
Fucking suck you bye. Put a lot of meat.
Are you still good?
No, what a gay. Oh my god, what a massive gay.
Nothing you can do.
I would have literally been so pissed if I was Sebastian. But Sebastian doesn't give a fuck about anything, so it's okay.
Why would you do this?
Because the amount, it's like, okay, you can make jokes, but then it's like you're not even like saying anything, you're just making jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like at that point, this is like Sebastian's moment. You know what I mean? This is his moment. But you're like trying to make it about you, trying to be the funny guy, telling all these jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really what's going on here. Because it's like, okay, you could say jokes if you're a funny guy, but also you engage with the moment and let the guy speak. Here, it's just like he's like throwing out every joke, every single joke you could think of.
That's fine. Not enough of a reason to get pissed. Because that's just like, being in your bag and letting someone take you out of your bag because you didn't like what they were saying.
Because you didn't what?
Like what they were saying.
Are you talking about me or Sebastian? Or like if I was in Sebastian's position?
Whatever, whoever. I'm just saying, like, it's not a reason to get pissed about. Even if you are Sebastian or you're not Sebastian. It's like, you're sharing wonderful news and it's like joyous news and it makes you happy and blah 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 blah. It's like, well, why would you get pissed on someone joking? Like, you know, like, it's not like, who gives a shit?
It's just like facetious.
You know, it doesn't matter what it is. Who gives a shit?
No, I feel you. No, like from that perspective, yes. Who gives a shit? I agree.
Because like you're in your bag. It's like literally like as a mechanism of survival, you have to stay in your bag if like you're in a good mood and some like about like some like life changing shit, and like someone's just like being annoying. Like you literally can't be upset by it.
No, I agree. I agree. You shouldn't get upset by it. There's no justification to get upset by it. But I'm saying it could be viewed as triggering. Yeah.
I mean, you're incapable of getting upset by it because you're fucking like it's like life. So not like when you're stepping on like the life reality. It's just some heavy shit, you know? Like, nothing's gonna shake that. Nothing's gonna shake that fucking feeling.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. You're not on petty vibes. You're on examining your entire energetic existence.
And some niggas making fucking, I don't know, video posting, yeah, like Crucio style chaos. Okay, like, he's like, okay, like, cool, man, thanks.
Yeah,
Especially if you're Sebastian.
yeah. But you feel my kind of side of it too, right? Oh, he's still here. Did we just all like ditch him at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like my joke?
Oh, no. I was looking for the joke.
Yeah.
What's up? How dare you flood my life while I'm sharing
It was mostly for Sebastian.
Mm-hmm. You should go see him. You should go. You go see the guy.
Like right now?
No. Yeah, but the thing about kids, right? Kids is like.
Well, let's say bye to him. Let's wrap up this Sebastian real quick.
I'll keep it going as long as it takes. Oh, he's sitting. Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Yeah. got a shred with his 8-month pregnant wife and push her down the ski slope so that we can save his life.
No, it's fine, bro. It's like we saved his life from what? You haven't seen him in years.
I'm memeing, dude, of course.
Really? Right, I know you mean. But like, even if you had seen him in years, right? It's like, actually, it's a little different. But alright, so the way I see it, right? I'm sure you go over the weekend. Yeah.
But yeah, let's just wrap up with this man so we're not all divided in our shit. Isn't that funny? We were like sharing pictures of his wife, and then it's like the whole conversation's like very central to her.
Mm-hmm.
And we like never talked about her before, like ever, basically.
Mm-mm. Not once, never. You said big old, bro. What the fuck? That's my boy after all.
Big ol' damn. No, that's true, dude. He brought back the big ol'. That's funny as fuck. Oh man, that's funny as fuck. A big ol' is a good meme, dude. Good meme. That brings back a lot. Damn, that's like 3 syncs in a row. Cause I'm like also just in the energy of thinking about sex and pregnancy, and then like here is one of my closest friends throughout my life. You know, not so much now, but before. He's like top 5 guys, you know? And he's like, hey, I'm pregnant. While I am contemplating about sex and pregnancy and the energies of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Magical dreamland. What can I say?
What's see about kids? Just like, yes, on one side, it does add a layer of attachment. But it's like, you can think of like attachment as like 2 different things, right? There's the object of attachment, and then there's the desire itself. You know what I mean? There's the object and the desire. So it's like, yeah, sure, creating a kid does create an object for desire. A very big one at that.
I'm hearing
A very big stretch, however, so that creating the object for desire or attachment necessitates the desire and attachment. And that you can live a world of abundance and freedom with a kid.
Maybe you can, but this is gonna get in the way of the actual. I don't know. No, I do know, but I feel like I already know what the reply to this is gonna be.
Yeah, but it's a circle, because it's like, yeah, you're right, you never seen a nigga with a kid get smirked up into heaven. Fair enough.
I never seen anybody get served up to heaven.
Nigga get smirked up into heaven, so like, what's the point? Exactly. However one's path goes, you know?
Yeah.
What brings you to the divine center? What takes you away from it? You know? That's all it really is. And yeah, as it turns out, it can be different paths. Shocking.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's impossible. It just wouldn't make sense to me in terms of like...
Like, it certainly doesn't make sense for you.
It can make sense in the context of reincarnation and multiple lives, in that you live out the curse of birth and death and attachment to a child, but it is still a curse. For lack of a better word, you know.
I think there is a better word for it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter the word. It is what it is. It's like,
I think there's a better way to describe it, though. A blessing. I don't see life as a curse. Certainly it can't be a curse. How can it be a curse? Does this feel cursed? Do you feel cursed right now? Enjoying a moment with your friend? How can curse? It's both. It's both. It's the ever-loving extent of both blessing and curse. You know? It's like you're not doomed to die come into this world. Sure, it lowers your chances, but you also get the opportunity to ascend your spirit. So that's pretty cool. Can't have that. Especially if you're a living soul, you get birth, and you know your child as a soul. So that's cool.
Did you say your child will have a soul?
Excuse me?
Did you say that your child will have a soul if you give birth and you have a soul?
Yes, I said chances are.
Don't know about all that, Chifo. Because I'm pretty sure I have a soul. But I'm pretty sure my parents...
You don't say it. It's not worth saying.
Fucking NPCs. And I've been acknowledged this. You know what I mean? So it's like... Probably not. Statistically speaking, probably not. Otherwise, it'd just be families of people that have souls, and then like. But I ain't seen these families.
That's not what I
Sheesh.
said. I didn't say that. You put it the other way around.
No, I know you said they probably will.
No. I said.
No, I know. But it's just like, you know, who knows? He knows, right?
No. I said that I'm a living soul, and therefore the chances that my child has a soul are theoretically higher. What I did say...
Theoretically, it's true.
What I did not say was that I have dead soul chances of me having a child with a living soul are high. I didn't say it.
No, I feel you. I know. I was making a false thing.
You refuted the statement by supplying a paradigm of a soul to a living soul, where I was a living soul to a living soul.
No, I know.
So it's really intense. So it's like, and yeah, it's like, how many negative female out there with living souls anyway? Probably can't point at too many. Probably can't point at any. So, how useful is the science experiment really? You can't really say to any, like...
Exactly, yeah.
That guy's got a living soul, and his kid is stupid. There's no one like that in the world. So, like...
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like, that's because it's not your experience. That's the beauty.
Yeah, so all the theory doesn't really...
It's just theory crafted.
But whether they have souls or not, I mean, I'll just say, for me, it just is unintuitive, because the process, and I know, you know, it could be different for each person, blah, blah, like, but, okay, it can be, sure. Like, just how a person eating cheeseburgers can be the path of one person, and they die eating cheeseburgers. I don't know. Like, everything has its place, right? Not to fully equate children to cheeseburgers, but just as a, you know.
Yeah, it's a bad equation. Just take we'll just select any arbitrary path. Module.
You can go into illusion and be in illusion for an extended period of time, and that is part of your path, obviously, because it is what you are experiencing, and everything you experience is part of your path. Like, intentionally, right? And there's no mistakes about it. But that's not to say it's a desirable thing or like a place you'd want to end up. Even though a person could convince themselves that is a desirable place they want to end up. So that's my sorry.
Whether an illusion is inevitable?
Wait, hold on. Just hold on 1 second. Let me just finish the whole thing. That's just my thing, right?
Oh, great.
So, yes. So my full thing is that given that, what I just said, that it just doesn't make sense to me, despite it could be in the paths of some people that it's like what they need, blah, blah, blah. It just doesn't make sense to me that as an endpoint for this experience where it's very intentionally designed to get you to go into yourself and not anybody else, and will, like, test you to, like, the test is how much do you know yourself and how much do you, like, care about your energies. So it's like the inspection, and like what you deal with is like almost entirely yourself, and like a lot of the experience lends to isolation in that way because it's like part of the test. So it just doesn't make sense to me that in this experience of mostly isolation, like the real work gets done in isolation, like almost entirely, or like a really good part. Of course, there's like your relationship with other people, and that's like part of it too. But it's like most of it is you're by your fucking self, looking at yourself, you know.
That's fair. That's fair.
And so it's like I just don't see where a kid and like a wife and like a bank account and a house and all these like binding things fit into that.
My reply was going to already address this anyway, back then, because I think it deals with a fundamental issue to your statement that I wanted to address first anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Which is that your statement, I think, dedicates on the idea that having a child is in itself illusory.
It's just binding to a lot of things. You know, the child could be cool. Yes.
Okay, I can just answer this entirely if we don't make the definition.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to get hung up on fucking words. Keep going.
But, you know, so, like, right, so I guess it's, like, the way I'm seeing it is, like, okay, I guess, like, fucking, like, these concepts, like, require you to actually use your brain. This word already fucking so.
That's why he's a fucking asshole.
Okay.
I love our woke talks, by the way. I just gotta say.
There's nothing more valuable in the world.
You can't get nothing like it. Okay, this is a bona fide woke talk right here. This is a bona fide 10-gallon woke talk.
10 gallons, I love it. Alright, so like I'm just gonna go for freaking minded. I would classify characteristically, because you mentioned isolation, right? Yeah, the best things have isolation. I completely agree with you. However, I would characteristically classify an interaction with a child to be something different than an interaction with a peer.
With a what?
With a peer. A peer.
A peer. Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Especially your child. Now again, all these things are fucking conjecture because I was okay. Whatever. But, you know, like, for example, like a lot of the child rearing that we experience in today's society is very evidently like usurped, fucked up, backward. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
Like, there's no actual, like, genuine human exchange. It's like this, like, authoritative power structure that's preset, and, you know, all that stuff, whatever.
Right.
There's no room for independence for the parent or the child. There's no
Right.
room for freedom. So, and that's fine. I agree with you. I think Sebastian's, like, taking a very big first step. For example, like, just, like, making homeschool before the kid's even born.
Yeah.
Like he said, an abortion, fuck the school. Probably even try to, like, you know, dodge some vaccines and shit, which is cool. But, you know, like, these are cool things. I think they do start to create that true dynamic, which is what I was trying to describe, is that when you're in isolation with your child, yes, by definition, you're not in isolation. However, I would say you're still satisfying the same energy of isolation because you're still okay. And the other thing I would say to that, and the reason I would say that is because I think, given certain elected circumstances, rearing a child is very, very much an example of dedicating yourself to a path.
Right.
And insofar as any path that one person can dedicate them to can be used for illusion and it can be used for discovery. You know? Anything. Going to the gym is a great example. It can be used for illusion, it can be used for discovery. So I think like the idea that like you're somehow taking yourself outside of yourself simply by addressing the needs of another person, I think is characteristically wrong, because there is still like, especially when it comes to your child, there's such a massive, strong degree of self-exploration occurring when you are addressing the needs of this person. You're not just like waking up and mindlessly going about your chores. Some people are, sure, fine, but like, do you get what I'm saying?
I do.
Cool. And I'll say no more. Anything else I could just be repeating. If you want to say anything back, I highly encourage you to nibble on it. So I'm going to do a cigarette.
Well, smoke?
Yes, smoke.
Take me with you, motherfucker.
No, I'm just going to get the cigarette over here.
Oh, right. That's good. I'm nibbling off.
Nice. Yo.
Hey, dude. I mean, yeah, I was thinking about it.
Huh?
I was thinking about it.
What's that?
What you said.
Oh, I'm glad. Thanks for helping. I was hoping you were thinking about it. Not smarty stuff.
Not smarty shit. I wasn't watching Dragon Ball Z about it. That's for sure.
Thank God. Yeah. I just had a, remember this funny thing. I had a funny interaction with a girl on Tinder yesterday. They were scrolling, I like notched this scroll, and I was like landing, or I always like usually swiping around.
Mm-hmm.
It's happening. Because usually when you land, you're getting the most attention. So, it's this girl, and she messages me. Like,
Wait, so when you land, you get the most attention? What do you mean?
On Tinder, your algorithm, when you travel.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. Oh, they're smart. That's funny.
I was just funny because this girl messaged me. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm also an Aries moon," and I was just like, "No wonder I hate your fucking guts." And blocked her.
Damn, you probably that on her.
That's all.
That's crazy.
That's pretty base. There's like a total like, what the fuck are you doing on this app moment, you know?
That's pretty fine.
Anyways, you've given it some thought, so now I will hear your words.
Right on, dude. Well, I was thinking about it, and really all I could say is, you know, I reckon the purpose of this experience is to just reawaken and feel alive and understand yourself, and know what makes you feel alive. So
Yeah.
if having a kid is something that makes somebody feel that way, then who the fuck am I to say what the fuck they ought to do? But so really, I could only speak for myself and say that is not something I want to do. I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, if you do feel that way, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, just for me, it would, even just apart from the kid, it would mean binding not only to the kid in terms of your time, your money, but also your wife, a place to live, stable something, stable everything, bank account, fucking all this shit, his future. It's like all of these extra complexities and bindings that have to sustain this little being are now on your shoulders. And the weight of that would probably, unless somebody is really very well developed, even I don't think they'd be developed enough, because if you were, then you wouldn't be here. But the weight of all that would probably wreck any sort of spiritual, like conscious spiritual development that you would like have. Or it'd get in the way quite a bit. Or it could work with it, but, you know, whatever.
I see. That you're certainly not wrong when you say that. Like, there's no part of that can be like taken and said that's incorrect. Certainly not. That being said, I don't think that statement's a guarantee.
Yeah, right. Because some people, it could have that weight and it could like propel them forward to like change their lives and shit like that, you know. But it's like also
that's one version of it. I was kind of thinking more in the line of like someone like, especially if you have the character of Sebastian, whereas like you take things as they go and they work themselves out regardless. Like Sebastian doesn't. I feel like that kid gives like very little conscious effort to his future and just kind of goes and things go regardless. And that's a beautiful existence. You know, if everyone's existence trusted the process, it would work itself out. You know. You really want to be in control of the situation, sure, you can fucking, you know, like, do all this shit. I think if someone truly left their future up to the power, with full trust, with genuine full trust, you know, like they were able to, like, purge all doubt from their being.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, their existence would work itself out. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. For example, like Sebastian's mentioned in the chat, like he did have a moment like about like, is this what I want in life? That kind of stuff. Which is understandable. But I would also venture to say that someone like Sebastian thinks about that stuff far less than your average young Mongolian shaman.
Right. Yeah, I'm hearing it.
Like, for myself, for example, could I really say, I think I would fall under the category that you were describing, whereas, like, it could revitalize, like, your purpose. Like, for me, could I really say that having a kid would distract me? It's like Tears of the Kingdom, you know? Which I'm getting close to beating, definitely.
That's cool.
Oh, fun fact, by the way, as of yesterday, I'm a 50 million.
You're what?
Millionaire.
You're a millionaire?
Mm-hmm.
You?
Uh-huh.
Why? How?
By saving the cup. By trusting cup.
Oh, that's cool.
What's the...
That's fun, dude.
Yeah.
I'm holding the thing right now.
Oh, let's go. Release. Keto all over this.
What was the last thing you said? Because I kind of forgot it. But if you say it, I'll remember.
Like I said, like for myself, like I would probably fall into the category that you described of like having a child revitalizing your purpose. Because I know for myself, I cannot say that having a kid would distract me because I play here.
Right. Oh yeah. So I wanted to say, was just everything can work itself out, right? And everything does work itself out. And I'm not saying that if somebody has a kid that they're gonna fucking have a terrible life. You know what I mean? At the same time, anybody can engage in illusory behaviors or make illusory decisions. And eventually the consequence of those illusory decisions or behaviors is going to work itself out. And it always does through their karmic, what they get, what they pay for it, right? So it's like, I'm not even saying that it would be like, it would be for me. But if for another person it's not so awful, right? Well, there's still a price to pay for all of this child rearing. And that would be, I think, more ignoring of yourself. That's like, I know you're gonna say that it doesn't have to be that way, but maybe it doesn't. I feel like it would be in any case, just because you would have so many bindings on everything, on your time and your energy, that I don't think there is very much energy to go around after all of the child rearing is said and done. It would become your number one priority. Your number one priority would be your kid, and it wouldn't be you anymore. And so it seems antithetical to the whole purpose. And so it's like, yes, things will work themselves out, surely, and they always do. But that doesn't mean there isn't a cost to your actions.
I think of maybe like Elon Musk, for example. Not to say he's the paradigm of what I'm describing, but he can certainly be used just as an example.
Sure.
That nigga got like hella kids.
Right.
And sure, his circumstances are different because he can afford to pay for all of them. You can just throw money at any scenario and problem solved.
Right.
The primary focus of Elon Musk's life, theoretically, is his business, not his children. And he seems to thrive in that environment. And I can't say anything about his family, but I can't imagine his kids are neglected or the Elon Musk kids are gonna get fucked up either way. So as I said, it's not the best example. But I don't mean to say I think I don't mean to be contrarian. I just think it merits mentioning that these things are not guaranteed. It's not a death sentence. Like, think of it this way: like in a natural earthly society, we'll use Atlantis as an example because we don't have anything else.
I'm holding a thing, by the way. I'm listening to you though. But I'm really holding.
Well, do you want to go?
You could finish your thing first.
Why don't you go?
All right. So just to expound a bit more about how I mean is, at least for me, I take the purpose of this life also is to reawaken purity and innocence, and part of that is to have fun and not take things seriously, because that's fear. Because fear is literally taking shit seriously. I mean, paradoxically, it is also kind of like, phrasing, but I think you know what I mean. It's just to live light, not to live like with a burden. But a kid is anything but light. It's like everything about it is like a serious decision, because it's affecting somebody that doesn't have their own, it's like a big responsibility. There's a big, like, weight for you to respond. You know what I mean? Maybe you could say theoretically some people, they could be woke and they won't have, I don't not really, because there's still like you
I'm not saying some people. I'm not saying some people. I'm only applying this example to those people that are relevant, and that would be the people right now.
yeah. Well, I think to any people, what it's like. Okay, your kid, you like if you don't feed them, they die. Okay, like if you don't shit them, then they'll shit on your walls. I don't know. If you don't take them to school, then the government's gonna take them away from you. Like there is a huge like list of serious things that happen when in regard to a kid, and like things you must do, things that like just in terms of your time and money and effort every day will bind you, but also just things you have to do, you know? And so in that way, if one is trying to use this life to awaken or remember the value of fun and silliness and playfulness and innocence, which is all I reckon are the part of the original creative energies, rather than seriousness and like heaviness, like rigidity, like then just having a commitment that binds you to many serious aspects, or like integrates a lot of serious aspects in your life, is just seems, you know, contrary to the reason to be here. Because you can't tell me that no part of a kid can be serious. I could talk to you playfully because you don't depend on me, you know? But a kid depends on you. So it's like, it's completely like your fucking weight, you know?
I know what you mean. That's a hard conversation to have, and we can definitely delve more into this. But
Or maybe, or if you say it's like, okay, you live in the mountains and you're woke and you don't need school and you could all just smoke fucking mushrooms or whatever the fuck. Okay, you still gotta worry that he's like gonna get eaten by a fucking tiger or some shit. You know, whatever, anything. You know what I mean? It just introduces this new layer of complexity and like seriousness. There's no better word for me to really find.
yeah, I guess no. I was gonna say it's like it feels like a conversation that's just about the definitions. Given what I guess entails the qualities that you're describing. Because it can also be argued on the other side of it too, that being in the presence of a child, especially your child, encourages you to return to that fun and silliness because exposed to that energy.
That is a perspective. That is.
I guess like in a world before abortion, in a world that is not infected by society, let's assume, and maybe let's not assume, but can we assume that a part of being fun and carefree and silly includes pre-love?
Well, I'd say that's just one aspect of this experience, but that's of the overall overarching aspect of understanding how your energies work and what kind of energies you want to inhabit. So, in that sense, sex may become distasteful because it's overstimulating and overly binding to another person. One reason being that you would depend on that person because they might mother your child.
I feel like that kind of delves into a circuitousness, where it's like children being exposed to a child raising circumstance is serious because or engaging in love is serious because of the child raising circumstance, and the child raising circumstance is serious by its virtue of existence.
Yeah, you're kind of right. One does depend on the other.
Because it's like, yeah, in any scenario, if the if the dynamic in sex is there's the risk of having a child, if having a child ruins the path, then like, yeah, having sex is never an option. Um, but
Which sex might be cool, just not here. Because I have sex in my dreams. This shit's lit, dude. I don't feel anything bad.
in a free world, sex is great. So I was kind of like suggesting how in the free world where sex is great,
Yeah.
like, I was gonna say in the world before abortion, there's no guarantee of safety for the children. It's a part of life already.
What?
It's only in this modern world we live in where having a child has become a luxury. However, given how endemic sexual activity is to human character, it's pretty reasonable to assume that having a child is a pretty big part of life when you don't have the option to kill it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's a part of life. And so I think it's fair to say that the intelligence code was written with kids in mind. Um, it's just another part of the maze, which is already a maze. Like, um, I don't know. I think it's unfair to declare that there's a guarantee of failure if there's a kid in your life, especially because the idea of having a kid in your life is already kind of guaranteed if you're not provided the luxury of killing your child in your society for free.
Right, but that's not really how to say.
And you can cite like Native American tribes, for example, where your kid is kind of raised by your community as examples where you're not beholden to the sole care of your child. You know, if you have cousins, aunts, grandparents, village chief, village whore, you know, like niggas you put up for your kid, it's like, okay, great. So wherein lies like, yeah, sure, you have ultimate care. But then like, you know, then it also delves into like the other things where it's, if you're taking your kid's life like so seriously, okay, fine, it's probably a good thing. You want to preserve what you have going on. Maybe you shouldn't. That being said, it's like that's only a problem if you're taking this scenarios seriously. Yes, it does provide you as we discussed in the previous conversation. It's like, yeah, okay, if this nigga talks shit about me, fine, whatever. But he talks shit about my kids, now I have to kill him. If you're supplying that double standard, yeah, you're already mixed up. The kid's not going to change that, and you're certainly not going to float out of your body if you're already mixed up with that underlying circumstance.
I think it's like I'm hearing you, and it seems weird because it's like, yes, ideally, damn straight make them damn kids. That sex is so, it's like a magnet. It's like your fate. It's literally your fate to make kids. Because you see a girl and you're like ooga booga, and then you fuck her and you want to come in her and you do, and there's a kid. You know what I mean? But, and so it's literally like everybody's fate to make kids.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
But then you look at it in the context of this world, which this is the, you know,
Also, die.
huh?
Like how you're also fated to die.
Not only that, well, I mean, yes, that's part of, you know, just the whole life-death cycle that can.
Yes, just mean like like that's an example of the energy you're describing.
Oh, what do you mean?
My example, death. It serves as an example of the energy you're describing. Where the same way you're fated of kids, you're saying the same way you're fated to death, same way you're fated to fucking jerk off. It's like just because you're fated to it doesn't guarantee it's positivity in your life.
I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Especially considering that wasn't my main point, but yes, I agree. That it's like just the context of this world is like it is, depending, I don't know how much you agree with it. Like, yeah, you kind of agree with it. I don't know to what extent, but just that this world is built on, like, that cycle of birth and death is like illusion. It's all like symbols for illusion or dualism, right? And it's like the very concept of meat bodies is part of that. And the very concept of being split into like beastly consciousness and like godly consciousness is part of that. The very concept of nature at all is part of that, you know? And so given that, it's like, yes, it is, you're practically fated to have sex, but you're also practically fated to live with like parasites for the rest of your life and eat cheeseburgers and like American like slurm till you're like 80, because that's what like 99% of people are gonna do. You know what I mean? That you're practically fated for that too. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's like, just given the context of this world, that's why it's like even the appeal to nature example, it works with some things like eat fruits or whatever, but it's like it doesn't work for a lot of things because it's like literally the absolute construction of this world at like the most fundamental level is like designed to be illusory and like just this fucked up disconnected construction, and part of that being the cycle of birth and death. So it's just like, given that context,
Yes.
yeah.
This I understand. I'm sorry. Are you done?
I wanted to tie it back to some central point, but I guess it's just
No.
like, given that context, everything I think.
Tie it.
But what were you saying? I kind of.
That's fine. I have what I'm saying. Tie it.
No, I mean, like, what were you saying before?
Before what? Before you start talking?
Mm-hmm.
That's unfair.
Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, just given that, it's sort of like, yeah, right. So it's like to say that we're like fated to make kids, and that it's all part of like this beautiful process that's like kept in, kept in mind for us. I don't really know how to say it. Like, it's like developed for us for our benefit, and like obviously it is, because here it is, and it's like, you're gonna do it practically, and if you're in nature, you will do it 100%. You know what I mean? It's like that doesn't really mean much, considering, well, you can be fated to eat cheeseburgers for the rest of your life, you know what I mean? And if you were in the Native Americans, you'd probably be fated to, like, kill the warring tribes, for generations or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean?
This is true.
It's like you'd be fated for a bunch of shit that would be dictated by your beastly consciousness, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, what's it for? For the exploration of illusion in this fucked up dream world. But that doesn't mean it's like something, like, just because it's so easily accessible and natural, quote unquote, doesn't mean it's what's best for us. And it's like there's
I think that's yeah. I think that's a good way to put it. Now, that being said, so I think it's fair we can establish in this conversation, like, it's better to think about a child less of an option in your life and more of just a standard condition of life. Is that fair as we move forward?
You mean, you said not an option?
Having a child isn't really an option of life. It's a condition of life, just the same as death.
Like a guarantee, you mean?
Theoretically.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for most, yeah, because they can't control their fucking dick.
Because of the reasons we both stated. Because sex is a guarantee, and in a world of free love, sex is a guarantee, and in a world of free love, coming and earth guarantee, thus having a child is pretty guaranteed.
Right.
So, given this, right, I think it's fair to look at the process of having a child as nothing more than a condition of life. same as your birth, same as your coming of age, same as love and death. What do we know about conditions of life? Well, spiritualists want very hard to overcome those conditions. Spiritualist, that word.
It's okay. We know what you
I
mean.
don't want to say you and me because I don't want to declare what you're trying to do.
I feel you.
So I'll stick with what I was going with.
Overcome beast consciousness. That's how I'd phrase that.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So there's still a process of overcoming. That's enough for me. You are engaged in the process of overcoming conditions of life, like base consciousness. So in the line of what we were describing, a kid becomes nothing more than another condition that you should overcome. Given this, human has two approaches. One, it can take the preset, societally inserted approach, which is, well, if you don't want kids, then we offer you the option to eliminate that entirely. Okay. So there's that. And there's the other one, which is like celibacy.
Right.
I wonder, this is all underscore science, I wonder to what degree an individual who is engaged in the path is engaging in a process of avoidance when declaring that they will nullify this condition of life. You saw Full Metal Alchemist. King Xerxes, the guy from the flashback, Owenheim's.
Yeah. I know.
Wanted to become immortal, and he was going to do this whole, spell.
Yeah.
Like, I like that. Goes through this whole circumnavigation process and conquers death, right? And then this gentleman comes out and he says, I am above death. Death is not a concern to me, for I am immortal. Now, a Norman will look at this man and say, by golly, he's done it. Death is no longer a concern to him, for he is immortal. A person who gives it any degree of investigation and scrutiny might determine, well, certainly death is not beyond him, or it was enough of a concern that he was willing to go through all of this process to avoid it. Clearly he is attached to the idea of death, no matter how much he feels he is above it. Now, if we're to apply this paradigm to a child, it's like, I wonder, let's use myself for example. I wonder how much I would be attaching myself to the idea of having a child. Or not even the idea, dispense the idea, is attaching myself to having a child in the process of avoidance. If the point of our life, our given existence, is to overcome the conditions of life, well, I think it has revealed itself to be a process that is best engaged through the conditions and not around the conditions. It's like merging a shadow. You don't get rid of your shadow by running away from it. So it makes me wonder if, say there are two sides of myself, two timelines, that both split when the opportunity to have a child is presented. in one timeline, I choose, I get an abortion, and then I choose celibacy for the rest of my life. And on the other timeline, I have the child and live in my world of free love and natural society, and um, given purchase on my existence. Um, which one of me lived free of attachment? The one who and I'm not quizzing you. You don't have to answer this question. It's just your thought. Which one of me lived free from that attachment? The one who had the abortion vowed for celibacy, or the one who opted for the child, given that it was a guaranteed condition of life, and continued on with my path, given the circumstances around it. I think it's also a worthwhile quandary because prior to the modern existence that we enjoy today, much of the adult experience had nothing to do with personal endeavor anyway. It had much to do with the curse of the flesh, wake up on the fields, get food, that kind of shit. And there was power in that. There is power in that. There's power in the simplicity of farming and, and killing. Cause it's like if you can chill with a kid, you can fucking chill. So that's all. That's. I know it was long, but I feel like it was worth saying. Like I think it kind of touches in on like what is really occurring in the practice of the child.
I get you. It's a good pondering.
And I think it is something that really can't be answered by myself or by you. Like it's just like that's a matter of self-exercise. It's a self-exercise of discernment. How much are you giving yourself to avoid this concept? How much are you giving to yourself to engage in the concept? And how much are you giving to yourself to live in tandem with the concept and not have it be your attachment, your psychological attachment? But you can think of it on the other side too, like this. I'm sorry, I'm sure you have lots to say, but I'm just going to...
Not really. I'm just thinking about what you're saying.
Sure, yeah, it's just when you're talking and just someone more thinks about. If I choose to live a life of avoidance from the condition of the child, then surely I'm attaching myself to something. Surely there's an idea of myself for which I expect or anticipate or aim for.
Definitely. You're doing it for a reason.
There's got to be a reason. There'd be no other reason to run from it.
Doesn't have to be running, I'd say.
Reason.
Sorry, what?
I just said there'd be no reason to run from it unless you had a very compelling reason.
Yeah, right. I mean, same thing with the cheeseburgers example. It's like, yes, look at cheeseburgers. So tasty. I am practically fated to eat cheeseburgers and grains and cooked food and meat for the rest of my life. Practically fated. But there's good reason why I'm not doing it. And that's not really an attachment. Well, I mean, you could call it an attachment, definitions, whatever. I'd call an attachment something an unhealthy, thing. But, something that's like not good for your inner would be like an attachment, whatever definition. But it's like either way, you're doing it for a reason, and the reason is because you value your inner, because you realize what that cost is of doing that, and that if you did go just with the basic flows of life, then that's what would happen. Though it's interesting, like what you say, because it's like, yeah, it's like somebody like Sebastian. I feel like would just be like, yeah, bro. Mushrooms grow, people grow, I got born, I'm gonna make a kid, and it kind of makes sense and is intuitive. But just judging in the context of this world that things that make sense and are intuitive by common sense standards don't really ever lead to good outcomes. Because usually the thing that all the normies do is the thing that's like absolute poison, generally. And generally, nature is not anything particularly graceful to look at. I mean, sure, it has aspects of beauty, but also nature is founded on everything killing each other. And that's not really a nice reality. So, but it is interesting to consider how much of an attachment or an avoidance the person... Because, yeah, it does seem like a lot less intuitive. It seems like way more intuitive to just take the Sebastian approach, you know? But, and then there's the question of how much... That was interesting. How much avoidance does the person have that's like trying to avoid that rather than just go along with it? But I think it can be viewed that way, where it's like, well, cheeseburgers with fapping, with, you know, any unhealthy habit, you're basically destined for it, but you don't do it for a reason. Mm-hmm. And I think sex and babies are just part of the recognition of all those many things that just fuck up our energy, you know? That's how I see it.
No, go ahead.
Maybe I wanted to add something, but I was like mostly done. But yeah, that's just like how I see it. Yeah. It's an interesting thing to ponder, and then the person should ask, like... Because, hey, as far as I'm concerned, NPCs only know this world. So it might actually be more, you know, more intuitive for them to do that. Because they're like, well, I am just an animal. Like, with some stuff going on. But it's like, you are of this world. And so this is your calling. And this is intuitively, like, the best thing that you want to do. And you want to take that role. You know, you want to have those responsibilities and, like, continue the cycle of birth and death, and that's, like, for you, and you like that, great. You know what I mean? But just speaking for myself, it's, like, it kind of goes against all the common intuitions, just like everything else, you know what I mean? Just like fucking everything else. But also is intuitive in its own way, too, from, like, kind of an experience level.
I know what you mean. It's like, it's intuitive. It's intuitive or counterintuitive depending on whose values you implement into the scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So just two things don't go up.
It's like being vegan is the least intuitive thing ever. You have like literally all the tastiest fucking things you can imagine around you, and then you just like don't eat them and eat leaves and fruits, which are boring as shit, and then you fucking die and feel like shit for like 3 years. And turn really skinny and everybody thinks you're dying. Like, that is literally the least intuitive thing imaginable. And the whole time you want to eat all the tasty shit. And everyone's telling you to eat the tasty shit. You know what I mean? It's like, that is so unintuitive. And so is unintuitive the feeling of, like, resisting wanting to have sex. You know? But that is just all part and parcel, I think, of this world's test. And the fact that we are in meat bodies that just unconsciously do things. The whole point of these meat bodies is that they do just run meat programs. They run their meaty programs of like, give me that fucking cheeseburger, give me sex, give me drug, you know? And we don't really get that anywhere else. You could only in a meat body get that, you know? So it's like, it is unintuitive to go against their wishes, but then when we look at how our energies actually like are affected by these things, then it's like, then we're choosing God consciousness. Then we're choosing like heart consciousness and like knowing ourselves consciousness, you know? So that's how I view it.
Yeah. So two things. One thing that is in addressing of what you're saying, and another thing is just out of context, which is first. That's why I love fucking talking to you.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I said it's gonna be a juicy one. It's a juicy spicy meatball.
You and I can explore any concept to its deepest point and only find enthusiasm in the endeavor.
Shit's lit, dude. I love you, bro. You're the best. Artie doesn't hold a candle.
I mean, I was musing about having this conversation with other people, and how much.
Artie, if you're listening, you hold a candle. I love you too. I just realized I'm gonna post this. I said Artie can't hold a candle. It's because you left. That's why I said that. I have great talks with you too. All right. If he ever listens, he's not gonna fucking listen to this.
Nobody watches these.
Nobody watches these.
I was musing about how, like, there are several stages in this conversation where someone else I know might have been exhausted by delving deeper to a point, exploring different angles to a point. Like, we're always willing to explore topics to their fullest and beyond just like the material understanding of the topic, but like truly like understanding the true science behind it as well, and like any other like unspoken energies that have an impact on it. I think it's just truly an amazing special dynamic that cannot be replicated anywhere because, well, it's the essence of life. So love it, great, thank you.
Hell yeah, dude. Shit's lit. Shit's awesome. You said it all. I got nothing to add to that.
Because it's like, anyway, it even need not be said. It's just an amazing thing how deeply we can explore and not be exhausted by it, and live in by it.
Yeah, because nobody gives a fuck about this. So it's like, like,
exactly.
Someone could
just gonna have the kid anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. No, shit's lit, dude.
Now the other thing to address that, because I understand and I agree with what you said. You're right. You're right in saying that that the paradigm is applied can be also applied to other choices people make, like jerking off or eating cheeseburgers. And that, like, well, how much are you really like, are you really learning if you're not going to eat the cheeseburger to see what happens? Sounds like you're just running away. And that's fine, and that's certainly. I'm not saying that's your opinion on it, but that's an acceptable view. I would venture to say that those energies, in particular, don't exactly compare and don't require as much individual scrutiny for multiple reasons. For the cheeseburger example, I don't think it exactly stacks up, considering that with eating cheeseburgers, there's an alternative. And it's not just an alternative, it's a viable alternative because it has its own benefits. You know what I'm saying? It's like, one could argue you're living a life of avoidance because you're choosing to not eat the cheeseburger and find out what happens. Then there's the other side of it. It's like, well, you're also living a life of avoidance if you're choosing to not fast and see what happens, or whatever it may be.
Right. Just whatever guidance, whatever internal stuff is guiding you,
Right. There's an alternative there. Now, say for example, like comparing it to like jerking off, where there isn't really an alternative to jerking off. I mean, you could say sex, but it's something different. It's something different entirely. Like, when it comes to jerking off, it's either you do it or you don't.
There's an alternative. There has to be, because it's like that sex energy has to move somewhere, right? Similar to how, if you eat right, you have to have some sort of creative energy, or lack of a better term, spiral power. You have to create some spiral power and like move it inside of yourself to have like to override your fate, basically, right?
Yeah, that's fair too.
And like jerking off would be the same thing. Having sex would be the same thing. Is you need to uphold that pillar of truth and spiral power inside of yourself and like move that energy. Because it is like, it is your fate to jerk off if you don't move that energy. Like, it is.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's not that's in fact more so to my point, but I would say that that's different because that's more of an act of transmutation than it is an act of alternative.
No, but
Like,
so is the food. The food is the same thing because every single time you see that food, you're going to want to do it. But then you have the choice. It's just here, you know, it could be instead of jerking off, you breathe. Or instead of jerking off, you do some Kegels. Or instead of jerking
right,
off,
that's
you
what I
go
mean.
work on
That's what I
something.
That's what I mean. You're transmuting the activity into something else entirely.
Right.
And this is not to dispute you because you're actually like reinforcing my point. But since this whole point has been in the nature of supplying predications, then this is where we lie. Um, like, um, I just mean to say, like, when you eat it's either cheeseburger or lettuce, right? And when you eat the lettuce, not the cheeseburger, you're not like transmuting in the same way, because you're not like it's not like you're going from like stop smoking to working out. Like these two are your alternatives. Those are two different things. Eating a cheeseburger versus eating a lettuce is still the eating. It's the same activity. So like, there's just like different forms of the activity. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no different form of jerking off.
I get you, but I don't agree. I think just because they look similar, like in terms of you're both eating rather than jerking off, you're doing one activity versus doing another. Uh, I I think they're way basic, like in terms of an allegory or like an energetically. In terms of an energetically, what's actually happening sense, they're the same thing. Even though in the eating that they look very similar, whereas in the other ones they might not look as similar. Because it's like if it was just a simple choice, then yeah, maybe. But it's not. It's like you have to one, resist the urge, two, summon like a deeper energy for like why you're doing it, and then three, make a different choice. You know?
That's fine.
And it's like
Okay.
even like it could not even be eating something else. It could be like exercising. You could be most people don't eat out of hunger, they eat off of boredom. You know what I mean? So it could be like instead of eating shit, you could go meditate, or you could exercise, or you could breathe also, like
Yeah.
you
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Okay. So that actually like supports my point in both ways. Because you could use my side of that or your side, and I think it still remains to the point I was trying to make, which is that um, those activities like when you're cheeseburgering versus veganing, um, there is there's an alternative. Okay, like there's like you can do the other thing, um, and but those choices, which are microcosmic, don't exactly come with the same implications of impact as the idea of having a kid.
yeah, definitely.
Uh,
Wait, dude, I've been turtling for like 5 minutes, but I'm gonna just keep saying I could hear you from the bathroom. I don't know if you could hear me, but if I don't come back in time, know that I heard everything you said.
they heard.
Wait, can you hear me from here?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Alright, that's cool. I'm not gonna yell the whole time, so just
No, it's
make
just
it long.
like now this is fine. Now I get to talk with no interruptions. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Uh, like it's a different scale. Like the dieting thing, maybe not so much. The dieting thing, because like in its macrocosmic. Are you back?
No. I wanted
Are you?
to peek up.
Like the dieting thing, not so much because it is a series of decisions that stacks up to a big macrocosm of choice, whether it's this way or that way. Um, but I guess the point of what I'm trying to make is just that it's a different energy entirely. Like to say that um, these actions of living an illusion in a microcosmic sense um, define the things that we are trying to overcome in this life is true. I wouldn't exactly think it's fair then to compare that to the experience of having a child, considering the degree of impact that a single choice makes.
Yes, I agree with you.
Um, so like, yeah, yeah, okay. So that's like that's that. That's all. Um,
I'm a few more minutes still if you want to say more stuff.
okay, I will. Let me just think on it. 'Cause I want to bring it back to what we were talking about earlier.
I do have a response to that, but I don't want to yell it through the whole house.
Okay, please formulate it because I'd like to also tie it back to what we were talking about before without moving forward.
But you can say more stuff. I'll keep it.
I want to say more stuff at this very moment. I want to say more stuff without moving forward. So I want to bring it back to what we were talking about before.
I feel you.
I'm just trying to
I put
remember.
this on my phone, but I'm recording it there, so I don't want to like fuck up the recording.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine, man. This is a lull in the thing anyway. In the footage. I'm just trying to fucking. What were we? No, it's not worth it. Anyways, you go, cause it will help. No, you're taking time. All right, just chill on it. I'll keep working.
Yeah. I got a spicy poop.
Nice.
Wait, if I just talk like this, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, this isn't that loud at all. Yes, I agree in that the gravity of just one decision is a lot. Way more impactful than, you know, making a vegan decision of like one time. And, yeah, that's kind of like.
Ooh, this is good. I knew letting you talk would actually resurrect my memory. Very good. You may continue.
Uh, Wait, so kind of like reiterate your point. You said that, and then so like,
Yes.
so what?
Yes. This is why I was trying to remember because it was like, so what?
Yeah.
And now we're back. And now we back, baby. Because we were talking about this in the nature of avoidance and attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And I suggested the idea of how much one is engaging in the act of avoidance when they are choosing to avoid having a child, and you had supplied an alternative comparison of choosing and like engaging in active avoidance by making other good, healthy choices for oneself, like refrain from eating cheeseburgers.
Right.
Like you're, I think, and at risk of paraphrasing you or misrepresenting your point, I think the point you were making was that um, that the process of describing of perhaps of suggesting that there's a possibility that one is engaging in the act of avoidance by avoiding having a child through the means that society for um, is um, is the same idea of one who is uh, could be the same idea as one who is engaging in the act of avoidance by making better choices for oneself. Like wherein lies the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Is that pertinent or accurate to what you had said?
Yeah. Yeah, like it's the same thing.
Right. So I guess then that would be my response. Therein lies the difference because the scale is different.
Right, I hear you.
The scale and the nature of the choice is different. It's just objectively much more important and serious to make the decision of the child versus make the decision of what you're gonna have for breakfast or whether you should fap or not.
Right. And it makes a lot of sense to me that it would be that way, because otherwise, how could the Matrix machine continue? You know? That's sort of like, I had that thought too. I'm like, this is the thing I fear the most. But, it's so fucking tasty. It's like, well, yeah, that's how it works. It's like that energy is so strong. Like, it's so strong and magnet pulling. Strong in terms of, like, its gravity. How it pulls you into it. It's like, it is your fate to make kids. It is your fate to recreate the Matrix machine. You know? With whatever, connotation that's said. I'm not necessarily even saying that's a bad thing. But it's like, it is your fate as a meat body to recreate life and death. You know? And to stay in this cycle of life and death. So, it makes sense that it's like that. So actually, in a way, given that it is the strongest pull, it's like, that is like the granddaddy of like things to overcome in terms of like your beast mind, your beast energies, in terms of like choosing God consciousness rather than choosing something that you would be fated to otherwise in a flesh body.
Like it's like the biggest trap, you're saying?
Yeah, just like the biggest pull, however you phrase it, negatively or positively, it is like the thing one is most fated to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Even like, well, actually, I don't know this number. I was gonna say, like, even like, you could probably find more raw vegans than you could find celibate people. But I don't know if that's true, because there's a lot of Christians and stuff.
You said that you could find what?
I sort of don't even want to say it anymore, but I was like, you'd probably find more raw vegans than you would find, like, non-religious celibate people.
Yeah, okay, I see, you corrected yourself because you're thinking about Christian stuff. I think, to help your point, might want to say, you will probably find more raw vegans than you would find celibate people who are choosing celibacy for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But like, that's a kind of stupid ass point. Whatever. It's like, you could just feel it in. Well, I feel it in myself, and just like logically, it's like, yeah, because it's like, you don't. Like, you have to the Matrix machine must be recreated. Like, we wouldn't have gotten to this point if that wasn't like the thing that's like most fated to you, because it is like. Yeah, it's like if every time you just ate a cheeseburger by accident, there's like a not 0% chance that your life is altered, like not, non-reversibly after that. You know what I mean? It's like eventually after 50 or so cheeseburgers, you'd pretty much be fated,
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Yeah. I guess, fair to say that the act of having a child is similar in energetic weight to the act of your diet choice. Similar, not exactly equivalent, but similar.
Yep.
Conversely, the act of having a child is much more energetically weighted than a single choice of meal.
Yep. And it makes sense why it is.
So when looking at this thing that possesses a lot of energy, let's say karma, the act of giving a child possesses a great amount of karma versus the act of your next meal possesses, well, however much karma, then whatever choice you make surrounding the act and whatever reason you supply for making your choice has a lot more karmic weight to it than what have you with the meals and the jerking off. With us. And this is only merely a suggestion. This is not a conclusion or even what I agree with. I don't really know what I agree with here. But I do suggest that because there's so much karmic weight attached to the idea of having a child, whether you do or don't have it, that one risks tying up their karma based on whatever decision they make around that. More than tying up their karma based on a daily decision. More than just a daily decision, but pretty much any decision in life. That ties up your karma more. You could, as we had suggested previously, one could have a kid for the wrong reasons, one could have a kid for the right reasons, whatever those reasons are. But that it could perhaps exist, I think, brings up the point that what I had stated, that there's intense karmic retribution surrounding making the wrong choice in that matter for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Could influence your whole shit.
And that one's, if one uses avoidance around the matter, they're exposing themselves to intense karmic retribution if their reasons are wrong. If they're just if they're fucked up around the matter. What are they, it all comes down to what are you transmuting? What are you channeling? That kind of stuff. At that point, it really just negates that choice entirely. Because it's it really always just boils down to what are you transmuting and what are you channeling.
Right. And it's a big ask. I mean, it's a huge ask to do that. And
I would agree. I very much agree with you that the chances of you transmuting and channeling something productive is a lot smaller given a child in your sphere, and mostly given a child in your sphere, provided the general rules of society that we have around having a child.
Yeah. That's why I don't see it as a bad thing in terms of if you're looking at it from the reincarnation perspective, which I don't even know if we reincarnate or if we don't, or if it's the only time. I'm kind of leaning to this as a one-time thing, but who knows? Is that, some fucking crack whore or something gets pregnant and then she has a kid and is shapes up a lot because of it and experiences that, and maybe we all experience that aspect of living in birth and death, living in meat bodies, making the next generation. And maybe we all experienced that, and that was a thing to experience. But I think when you're actually ready to GTFO out of this whole thing, that it's ultimately from your experiences that maybe that you already lived. If you reincarnated and did that, then you'd know what that would bring in terms of sticking around in this cycle and giving yourself to this world, pretty much. Mm-hmm. It's it's a disconnect, the how to say, a big part of the whole process is a disconnection from the physical, which paradoxically also kind of makes you badass in the physical and way more competent because you're in yourself, you're operating from yourself. But it's it's a it's a sovereign, it's bringing back your sovereignty, and then so for that you have to take everything away from the physical that would disable your sovereignty, which would really only happen through your own actions, right? So being a slave to your senses, in other words. You would take all of that back. And so, because even just the act of having sex and not having a kid, that binds you to another person. That straight up, I felt this shit. I feel it all the time. There's literally a cord that binds you and them and slurps energy between you two. And not in a...
I've seen this.
Yeah, I know you know too. And it's not in a very healthy or healing way. It's just in a drug addicted kind of way, you know. And so it's like,
seeing the cord.
yeah, yeah, and it's like you know, so for a person that's like coming to get out of it, like just on the cusp of telling the BTFOing this bullshit and their senses, their beastly desires, then that like keep them attached to this. Then it's like you wouldn't even want to have sex. Like even like not even the kid is just like even from the perspective of another of like binding that hard to another person and being dependent on another person through that, because it is the most this seems like a separate topic, but it's really like part and parcel, because it's like what do you need to do to like to like make a kid is like first you need to fuck, right? And then when you fuck, that already is like the strongest binding you could possibly have to a person. So here now you are already well getting taken out of your own energy, right? And then now it's like you're super bound up with them, because now you have to work on a lifelong project together called a child, and now you're super bound up to that child, and now you're super bound up to that child's life, you know, in the physical. It's just like you can't just, you know what I mean?
I do. I certainly wasn't actually in this whole conversation, even though we had this exact conversation before. In this whole, I wasn't even really thinking about the factor, which is that when you're child rearing, you're also engaging with your partner as well, which very much certainly reinforces the idea that it is a attachment, an active attachment. Absolutely, certainly does not dispel my theory, which I'm calling a theory because I'm not establishing it as my point or my hypothesis, which is that these conditions are still circumnavigatable. But yeah, you're literally, because now you're not like, I think we said the same thing last time. Like I would totally have a kid, or I said this, like I would totally have a kid if it meant like the woman was nowhere to be found. You know, it's like if I could just pop one out my ass, like great. You know.
They'd probably be all retarded, because it's like, well, I mean, maybe not. I don't know. Not because you're raising them. I just mean
I
like.
was capable of popping a kid out my ass. I sincerely doubt that that kid would need a mother.
Oh, I mean, like if you could, yeah, then it's like, you know,
Yeah,
all natural.
yeah, yeah. But if science injected a kid into my colon and it came out my ass, like yeah, this kid's probably all sorts of fucked up.
Yeah.
Now, given this, like, if you're to take your average Norman, he has a wife, a job, and a kid, maybe two, maybe a dog, and subject that person to an intense mystical transformation late in their life, and say that person carries it away, and they become the next fucking Buddha, and they are just lit the fuck up. I would hesitate. I would hesitate to declare that on his moment of detachment, that his kid would hold him back. That being said, if you take your random 20-year-old child and subject them to an intense mystical experience, and they don't have a wife and a kid and a job, and then one evening a witch steals their semen and impregnates herself against his will, and then he has a child, I think it's fair to say that that person would have a much harder time separating or detaching based on the child alone. I guess I just mean to say that if if someone has these things, if someone has these attachments, and they declare the detachment, whether that's psychologically, verbally, whatever, I don't think these things would hold them back. I don't think these things would be an issue. Any more or any less than anything else might be.
I think there would be, because everybody is asking you to play a role. And if you don't play that role, then you are a quote-unquote bad father. And so you will be pressured to go into that role by your parents, by your spouse, by your spouse's relatives, by your relatives, by all of society is asking you to put yourself in a certain box, and that all of your activities in that day and all of your attention, all of what you value has to be within certain parameters that would make your kid cool.
Maybe perhaps I was being a little unclear. I'm talking specifically about a person who has already lived this role and within the expectations that people have supplied for them.
I mean, if you're like 80 years old and your kid's like fucking 30, yeah, he can go fuck off and you can do whatever you want, sure.
Let's say you're 40. Let's say you're 40 and you have a wife, a kid, and a job, and you get fucking woke, and you realize none of it is really all too important until you begin your own path. And you're there, you're on the cusp. You're literally levitating in your fucking living room. And you're like, alright, motherfuckers, time to go. I'll see you fuckers later. I doubt that person is going to be sitting there in their head like, man, maybe I should stick around because I got a kid.
I just don't think they... well, everything is guided also. But I think they wouldn't get there. Because they would still have to conduct their consciousness. It's not even more so about the activities. It's their consciousness. It's like your consciousness has to be boxed in with all these normies.
So you're saying that given those circumstances that scenario would never arise anyway?
Literally never ever.
Because I think it's also a matter of subjective determination. Like, how much are you really going to be forced to commit these things? Yeah, to a certain extent. Anyone has an expectation, a demand to live in a civilized society already. And yes, also not many people are out here fucking snapping out of their bodies. So, hold on. Okay. Sorry.
You were talking. I have stuff to say too.
Why don't you run your shit back?
Sure. So I mean, I don't think that would really happen because, well, one, nobody's really gonna do anything cool. Really, the cool stuff will only happen at the end. But, I think that person that if they get to that boundary of, like, wokeness, for lack of a better term, then they would find that unless for some inexplicable and like kind of contradictory to this whole world's tests reason, that everybody around them is also just getting crazy woke, then I don't think they would like it. I think they would push that wokeness down to match all of the binds of the people that they have attached themselves to. Because it would be very difficult and painful to live in that realization that you are binded by these things through this decision of having a kid. And so I think the natural course of action would be just to subside back into mundane consciousness. Because more so than anything, it's not even the actions you do every day, it's your consciousness. It's the invisible threads of connection that define the binds to all of these people, right?
Statistically, you're definitely right.
And in practice, I'm right, because nobody's gonna do that. Nobody's gonna live if a person is being inauthentic, and then it's like, well, I can't stop being inauthentic. Like, they can't be authentic, so it hurts to even consider that they are inauthentic. They're just gonna forget again. That's what we do all the time. We do that all the time in situations that are completely trivial. So how could anybody maintain that in a situation that actually is important, where a whole, how to say, the kid depends on you, and probably the wife depends on you because you work and you share finances, and then your family thinks of stuff about it. It's literally your whole life. People do that. People go into that forgetfulness willingly, practically willingly, to over absolute nonsense bullshit, and then push it down. So it's if they get a spark of wokeness, that's definitely getting pushed down.
I think it's fair to say that since given the nature of the conversation we're having, what circumstances might be considered acceptable to raise a child, given the conversation we're having, I think it's fair to say that your statement is highly dependent on circumstance.
No. I'll take it in any circumstance. Because you create an energetic configuration with the wife, namely the wife and the kid, right? But also everybody else that, knows you and knows you have a kid. You're creating and anybody that's attached to your kid, right? And anybody that's attached to your wife, is you have an energetic configuration with them. So it's to live this role is you have to preserve that configuration. You can't modify it just on a whim, which kind of is what freedom is I don't like this, so I'm gonna not do it. You know what I mean? Or not even a specific action particularly, it's just
so your wife says, I completely understand, loving husband, what will you do with your child? And you say, this is too much right now, I need to focus on myself. She says, okay. That's a circumstance. It's not feasible. It's not feasible, but a lot of circumstances are not going to be feasible because we're talking about an ideal way to satisfy life conditions in a terrible backward society.
The conditions don't really matter. It's totally independent of conditions. It's just a matter of it's a matter, and it's not dependent on the external, what you actually do. It's a matter of the energetic threads that bind you to people. And here you have a lot of binds. By definition, you have a lot of binds. Otherwise, you're just an absentee father. Which, is also thought of with shame, and maybe you think something about it too. That's just a whole nother thing to resolve, right? Maybe the woke thing is to just up and fucking leave. I don't know. It sounds kind of wrong and weird, right? But it's but it's so it's not really dependent on conditions. It's just that you have to define an energetic configuration, and you can't leave that energetic configuration.
I said condition as in referring to having a child as a condition of life.
I see.
But again, we can get specific if we need to for the purpose of the conversation.
It's hard to get specific about it because it's even nothing even necessarily has to change in terms of an external thing, but that
Yeah,
it will be felt,
I
and
agree.
and it will cause problems, quote unquote.
I don't think it's fair to say that what you're describing is by any means a guarantee of someone's relationships or worldview or approach. I don't think so. I think actually Sebastian is a good example of that. Hell, if anyone could live a free life with a child, it would be Sebastian. And I don't think it'd be very hard for him to do so, or at least impossible.
Right, but I don't know how much Sebastian is actually like. Well, at least how much me and Sebastian are doing the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like
What do you mean? I don't.
I can't judge other people's paths. I kind of can, but at the same time, I'm not them. You know, so I can't really. But I don't know how much he's actually like on a path of ascension. I don't know. I haven't talked to him in years.
Right. I guess, okay, so that's like, yeah, that's maybe a little too, maybe perhaps a little too black and white for what I guess I'm trying to venture to describe. Regardless of what path he is on or not. I'm just going to, for the purpose of this conversation, because you're right, we're not Sebastian, we can't judge him. Certainly we can assess using arbitrary tools that do not determine which way is black and white for him, which would be judging. And within the confines of the assessment, regardless of whether or not he's on the path, I think I will risk saying that Sebastian is on a path of some form or other for the purpose of the conversation. If you want to disagree, that's a different thing entirely.
Sure.
I
have a juicy phrasing I came up with too, so just putting it out there, but continue.
Okay. I think it would have less to do with how far along one is on the path, and a little bit more so to do with the psychological nuances or spiritual nuances that enable someone to approach a specific situation that impacts their path, for better or for worse. You can take someone who's been on a path for a very long time, and they probably still, and maybe they were a very anxious person when they started their path, and so they are usually susceptible to anxiety causing incidences, right? And so they're much more likely to deviate from their path due to anxiety. Okay. You can also take someone who has been on a path for a short time, has a very like a Dylan-like mindset, very accepting, open mindset, where things that impact their path are dealt with. I'm not saying Dylan does that. I'm just saying, think like a person with a demeanor like him may deal with these things. Now we're talking about a kid and Sebastian, and regardless of whether or not Sebastian is far along on his path, I don't think it is important, but I think it's fair to say that Sebastian absolutely possesses the human qualities necessary to not let a child-rearing situation detract from him. Or rather, that I would say he possesses the qualities that would make it far less likely, still likely, but far less likely, that that a child rearing situation would detract from his path. Because like, who's he really have? Whose expectations do you have? His family in Colombia?
His wife.
Yeah.
His wife, his parents.
His wife, sure. From the very limited understanding that I have about his relationship with his wife, uh, she kind of really just goes along with his quote-unquote retarded decisions. I say
Right.
quote-unquote retarded because they deviate from society's expectations, but Sebastian makes some pretty extreme decisions about his future and his life, and well, now his family's life. And I haven't really, at least from Sebastian's communications, witnessed a woman that is in some way like not amenable to that arrangement.
I hear what you're saying.
But it seems like she would take her pregnant ass to America and live on a mushroom farm with him, like on the floor, like no problem.
I hear you. I hear what you're saying, and in theory, it sounds well and good. And I mean, in theory, things can be theorized, right? But it's really about what the energetics do. And I just feel, in any context, if a person is trying to ascend past this human condition, past, I don't mean condition like having a kid, I just mean if they're trying to get out of all this fucking nonsense consciousness, then that is perpetuated by physicality, then it is probably best not to make ties that are rooted in physicality. And not to make obligations that are like
Perhaps if it's
rooted
perhaps an express prolonged conscious commitment.
what?
Yeah. What you're saying.
You said not in or in?
No, perhaps if it is an expressed and prolonged conscious commitment to make ties to attack like physicality, yeah, you should do that. Like, what if it happens by accident? Or alternately, it's a frivolous decision.
Well, then, then that's like your fate, which is actually kind of why this is all sort of like moot, because like if you have a kid, then that was supposed to happen. But it's like, ultimately, like, but also if you eat a cheeseburger, then that was supposed to happen. So it's like not, it's true, but also it doesn't mean that it's not illusion, right? Or that it's not illusory at its like fundamental, like allegorical level, like, or symbolic level. It's just like, if the point is to ascend, then creating bindings. If the point is to ascend, feel your full sovereignty and discover and live in the aliveness of that, which is what I interpret the point to be as, then it does not make sense to me to create bindings between other people that are necessarily rooted in the physical. Like, very necessarily rooted in the physical, in terms of...
I'm sorry, can you declare that statement one more time? Just say it again.
Sure. So if the point of this world is to ascend, to feel your own sovereignty, and feel the aliveness of it, and live in that, and eventually leave this whole cycle of consciousness, then I don't see how, and that's what I interpret that the point of this to be as, then I don't see how creating ties in the physical that necessarily have to be like tied to the physical, I don't see how that would help that ultimate goal. Because you have to make those ties. Like, you must make that tie at least between your wife and your kid. But as I understand it, the point of this experience is ultimately a lonely one, in terms of you look at yourself, and those
solitary one. Lonely is a different definition.
Yeah,
it's a
sure. And when you do make those ties, you necessarily are committing yourself to a certain role. You're expressly committing yourself to a certain role of a caretaker, of a person who is always going to have to share energies with these, people, and in this gradient of consciousness, right? And so in that way, you box your consciousness in, because even with another person, even with a lover, without a kid, you already box your consciousness in, because there has to be some sort of mutual form, like some sort of mutual and repeatable, not surprising, non-spontaneous form of interaction to create you know like a livable situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just what that will eventually devolve into, and there still can be spiritual aspects of stuff, and I'm not saying you're going to be completely dead, but ultimately you are the person would be limiting themselves to that role. They would be limiting themselves with extremely binding, there is no other more binding form of interaction with another person than having a wife and having a kid. And they would ultimately also be rooting themselves in a bunch of physical constructs in terms of where to live, where's the best place to live, where's the best place to go to school, where's the best place to do this, what's he gonna eat, and all of these physical.
I know what you're saying. I agree with it. In fact, I agree with it.
It's how could your soul fly when you have to do all of these things? It just does not make. Maybe it could. I don't see how. I literally see no way how.
That's interesting. That's an interesting way to do it. In fact, I had stuff to say, and you just said that last statement, and now I have more stuff to say. So fuck you.
That's pretty much done.
Where do I start? Do I start with what I was going to say, or addressing that last thing?
Yeah, whatever you want. Or whatever you think is good.
No, I don't want to sing it all. No, too much attachment. I agree with what you're saying. In fact, I think it's fair to say, for the most part, I agree with what you're saying. This whole conversation, we had this conversation in the past, and talking about creating more attachments and having to share this life with a woman, and by this life I mean life you created, not the child. All these things. So you have a fair understanding of my position on the matter to an extent. So I agree with what you're saying. What has compelled me forward in this conversation is, I guess, the request to consideration that it is important to not, maybe, and it's important, maybe it's not important, it's just a fucking figure of speech. It is of note to note that it's important to note how much binding one is placing on things in general, anyway. I know it sounds nebulous, but that's only because you made me fucking talk about so many things at once. God, we would be like a fucking recorder for these things, dude. We're gonna have to start creating a recording system. Just play back people's shit. You know what I'm saying?
That's funny.
But maybe it wouldn't retrieve memory in the same way. Maybe you need to move the conversation forward, actually. Wouldn't that be good?
Them energies do be ballin'. Like basketballs.
And this is paraphrased, something like you have to create all these bindings in order to live the experience of rearing a child.
Yep.
And they're unavoidable.
Yep.
Because in order to have a child, you have to do stuff, and you have to engage with people.
Yep.
To bind.
Is that Stanktown? Nice.
Delaying it because I'm still waiting for Zig and Octavius to get there.
Oh, I see.
But they're not going to be here for like another hour, so.
I see.
Yes, one place is binding small things. And yes, I agree with this. I'm from that. I think it's very important to note, however, how much one places binds on these things. Because you can engage in these things. How much of it is taken seriously, karmically speaking, and how much of it is taken with levity, karmically speaking, is ultimately at the discretion of the individual.
I don't think so.
Excuse me?
I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't think so.
You don't think that the degree to which someone takes things is up to them?
Yeah. Because it doesn't matter. You can finish what you were saying first if you want.
No, this is important.
Sure. So, because I don't. How to phrase. I know what I want to say. Just think of best phrasing. Is everything we do is a symbol. So it doesn't actually. Everything we think and how much we can like move, like our energy with our. Yeah, and how much we can move our energy with our mind is actually not as important as the actions that are symbols. So, that it's like saying, if I eat this cheeseburger, if I have enough willpower, I won't feel like shit. That's not true.
Yeah. No, very, very good. No, because I talk about this a lot, actually. This ties into my whole shtick on the essence of healing, which I find is a phrase that I often repeat that nobody else does, but so I'll call it my shtick.
I dig it.
This is something I often talk about in my shtick on the essence of healing, is the essence of healing lies in the commitment of the choice, the activity that one is engaging in rather than the object, the activity itself. And so I think you're actually making a very good important point that helps me reorient my perspective here.
Right on. Yeah, so it's like, if a person eats that cheeseburger, it's like that act, that symbol is stronger than anything they might think about it,
Right.
And so, similarly, even not even looking at a kid, right? Even just having sex with a girl is like, you could be like, oh, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like shit? Why do I like miss her? Why do I, like, yeah, maybe some amount of that. No, actually, no. It's completely just up to, like, the energetic, like, bindings that you have with each other. Like, what kind of energetic configuration is set up when you do that. And, like, when you fuck, that is the strongest energetic, like, binding you can make. Or the energetic fusion, whatever. Like, that is, like, you set up an energetic configuration with fucking, that's the strongest one it gets. Probably the only other stronger one is like between. I see it, Brody. Probably the only other strongest one they gets is between like parent and child, right?
Good. I'm glad you provided that distinction because I wanted to clear that earlier when you stated that, but I want to interrupt.
Yeah. So it's like in that sense, it is like, know that like you making this decision, even if it was just this one time thing that ended up into this, is like it was an action, right? And
Typically, okay. Yes. I'm gonna dive in if that's okay because I got everything you're saying and you're about to repeat yourself.
yeah,
If you're not.
yeah,
Feeling. Yeah. Specifically in the engagement of conception, I agree that is pertinent. that is an activity. It is a symbolized thing. There's no two ways of that. Oh my God! There's a rat at my foot. Will you? Hold on. There's a rat at my foot.
Dude, just let him chill there. What's the problem? What's the big idea?
I don't want to nibble on my toes.
The rats don't eat people. Probably. I never.
Oh, you know? Yeah, don't want it here because we have snakes in this garden, and I want the snakes to thrive. Specifically in the act of having children, that is a symbolic act. I agree with that. However, I guess what I'm referring to more specifically is everything that follows.
I get you, and I still think it has to be, in that energetic alignment. I still think it would have to be.
I don't think it's an unfair statement to say that the act of raising a child can be life-giving and exhausting at the same time. And I also don't think it's unfair to say that we have a certain degree of volition to determine when it is life-giving and when it is exhausting.
Yeah, like, I think it will evolve over time. Like, it changes over time, right? It's not going to be like the first year that you have the kid is like going to be the same exact energetic binding as like the 18th year or the 30th year, you know what I mean? But it still would be an attachment to another person that is ultimately putting your consciousness in a box, because you still have to be able to talk to them. Like, that just, like, you still have to be able to interact with them. So in order to do that, you have to be dependent on being able to, like, connect with their consciousness.
In order to do what?
In order to interact with them in any way, you know, or want to interact with them.
Right, in order to establish a full-on relationship.
Yeah,
yes.
It's like you would have to always tailor your consciousness to these people around you.
No.
Yes.
No. When you're raising a child, the whole point of raising a child is to lead by your example, is to live your truth.
I mean, your wife, too.
Fuck a wife. I'm not talking about the wife. The wife doesn't exist. Wife's dead. She died in childbirth. This whole conversation, the wife died in childbirth.
Well, yeah.
Not real. Women aren't real anyway. It's pointless.
It's true. That's another reason not to bind to them and make a kid with them.
When you're raising a child, you're not offering concessions you're offering concessions to reality, like maybe you would have gone out with your friends instead of hanging at home with your child. But I think it also harkens back to an earlier point in the conversation we were having when I said that the act or the time shared with your child can be equated to your time spent in solitude. Like, okay.
Hard disagree.
Hold on.
But yeah, I'm hearing you.
I understand. And I'm not stupid. Because a stupid person would not understand this. I'm not a stupid person, so I understand this. When you are talking to a child, when you have a child and you're engaging with it all the time, you are exchanging your energy. And you are beholding your energy to something that is not. Theoretically, but cognitively. Yes. That being said, we're not talking talking about a girlfriend or a mom, talking about your own living flesh and blood, your thing, your body, for all intents and purposes, your extended system. So the exchange that you share with your flesh and blood is no different than an exchange shared between your mind and your other mind. Theoretically, of course. I don't want to declare anything. This whole conversation, I'm really just having fun with this.
I love it. You're great at having at kind of pushing the envelope.
Thank you. I find it to actually be one of my most redeeming qualities. People hate it. I love it.
You're pushing the envelope, and it's good. It makes me think, too.
Exactly, right? Yeah.
Well,
you do this to me sometimes, and I value moments like this that test your consciousness. Because it makes me think too. Everyone thinks, and it's fun because I get to serve as a catalyst, and I get to fill both roles, like think and.
Yeah, definitely. Good synthesis and exploration.
That's my point. Because now I'm going to repeat myself. So I'm going to repeat myself only so that you remember, not so that I say it again. What I said was, when you're exchanging energy with your child, you're exchanging energy with your own flesh and blood, your own mind. There is no difference.
I hear you. I kind of get the idea, but I got 2 things and maybe 3 things to say to that, and they're all kind of the same thing in different phrasing.
In the real world, it's not you, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if that is well, the first thing is I got enough on my plate already. That's kind of a whole thing you could say about this whole thing. I got enough on my own plate already that I don't need to fucking extend myself.
I like that.
Yeah, that's like kind of.
That's good.
I was saving that for a while, actually, like an hour ago. I wanted to say that, then forgot. But it's like I got enough on my plate already. I don't need to extend myself into some other motherfucker that I also got to worry about. No, like no. So that's number 1. Number 2, if they are me, and there is much significance to be placed in the fact that they are my physical genetics, then why, and if they're...
That they're what? There's enough significance on the fact to say that they're what?
If there's enough significance to be placed on the fact that they are, like my genetics, right?
Oh,
Then...
Okay.
And if this energy is to be my responsibility and an extension of me, then why is it not inside of me? Maybe woke people that have parents could feel stuff from their kid, but they can't influence it. They definitely can't influence it. If fucking anybody knows, it should be our parents that knows you can't influence our shit. You could kind of like shape it when we're fucking retarded, but in terms of like actually, being us, no. I don't really even consider myself an extension of my parents. We are nothing alike. We're like very like I don't know. It could be anybody, and that's kind of like my third point is. Yeah, I know. But in terms of like the actual like, what are we doing? What is our consciousness? Where is our value to our energy?
That's not what you said. What's your third point? I'll go back to it.
Yeah, it's like, in terms of everything that, like, I kind of view physicality as programs, because that's what it is. It's like, it's ultimately just a very complex, like an algorithm simulation. It's robotic in that sense.
Yes.
And the only true thing is the spontaneity of consciousness, which is truly alive. And so...
You said?
Alive.
Alive?
Yeah.
Like not computational.
Yes. Yeah. And so in that way, just like how beasts are, more or less can be computer programs. It's like, ooh, have to eat. That's one program, and it comes in energies and in emotions, right? Or like those are kind of like not a superficial layer. I don't really know how to describe, but it's kind of like a byproduct of like that.
You say emojis?
No, emotions, and
That's
emojis, I guess.
yeah, your computer.
Yeah. There you go. That's pretty cool. That's actually like probably some allegory there, but yeah. So it's like it's like the hungry simulation, like the hungry app is running, and now the sleepy app is running, and now the sexy app is running, right? And it's like, so how much weight do I actually place on the fact that this creature has my genetics? Like, okay, they do, and that means something, but it's like, does that mean anything about their consciousness? Which is actually like what they are, Like my parents' consciousness clearly does not have much,
Because at the end of it, you are not your flesh and blood.
Huh?
Because at the end of the day, you are not your flesh and blood.
Yeah, exactly. This is just a like this body is just a a symbolic representation of your soul, right? But in terms of like, I'll say like for my parents, I don't feel like our consciousnesses, like I don't feel like my consciousness is
like you sharing like you don't feel like you sharing their flesh has any actual legitimate impact on who you are in your relationship to them.
in my relationship to them, sure, but in my relationship, like comparing my consciousness to their consciousness, like comparing my
I mean your allegorical relationship to them.
yeah, right. Like it's like I learned everything. Literally everything I know to be true about myself in this world, I learned none of it from them, and none of it was like as a result of their consciousness. So it's like to say that I am an extension of them is like the wrongest thing I've ever heard. You know what I mean?
All right. So your third point, I think, kind of is actually the same as your second point.
They're all kind of the same, yeah.
Yeah. Or not your points, but the second things that your response to what I said.
Yep.
But I think that what you said the second point directly, and how you led into it with your third statement, is kind of what I'm getting at here. Is like, okay, one, I'm not like we're not talking about like our relationship to our parents, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, like that's we're talking about someone else's kid,
Mm-hmm.
That's still someone else's kid. So one, like specifically, I'm talking about like your kid, my kid, your kid, the kid that exists in the realm of experience, like in your realm of experience, you experience the father-son relationship as the son, in the allegory, you are the son, right? At no point in the allegory are you are the father unless you have a child, right? So like when I say like someone else's kid, that's what I mean. Like in the allegory, they are the father and the father-son, dynamic. So conversely to that, I don't think that point alone is enough to really say that like attempting the experience of having a kid is worth it. Well, it's because it's your experience, right? It's like, well, eat a cheeseburger, like how like that thing we're talking about, like, no, as to like the flesh and blood thing, that's a very valid point. That's a very valid point because like think there is a lot to be said about your perspective of practicality. I would say you take a practical approach to this arrangement of or idea of kids, because it's like get real with yourself for 1 second. If you have a child, you are going to expend a lot of yourself to just do child stuff. Regardless of how they turn out, 10, 15 years down the road, it's 10, 15 years. Same time, what is 10, 15 years? It's fucking, it was 10 years ago, I was at Hunter College. Well, nearly 10, but 8, so that's actually that's very different than 15. But it's not a lot of time, right? It's not like a terrible amount of time, but it is, you are going to live that experience, and it's not just going to impact the time during the child rearing process, but after it as well. You see it with a lot of other families, whether they're real people or not, or normie or not. You see it. Parents and children that align well. I would say it's very much more common in non-Mormon relationships, like in non-Mormon families. Like you have parents who are kind of like us, but I wouldn't say I'm jumbling my words here because I don't want to compare these kind of relationships to what your relationship or my relationship would be like, which I'm also lumping together because they're just categorically different. Because I think when I talk about you and me, I'm talking about for this purpose of conversation, myself and my experience. So when I say my experience and your experience, I'm just talking about the personal experience. Okay. Right. So but I lump it together, even though it's mine and yours, when it's talking about other people, because it's just either other person or the personal experience. Okay. Okay. So. You see a lot with woke families, woke parents. They raise children who are actually really, really, really chill and great.
Sure.
And share similar heightened levels of consciousness and desire for freedom and joy and fun in their own personal endeavors, and that's cool. But I wouldn't necessarily say right. So that's the other side of that. But I wouldn't necessarily say that is the thing that makes having a kid okay. One, it's almost not worth the experiment to see if the kid is your flesh and blood, and if that has any impact on your consciousness and their consciousness. And two, it doesn't even really justify having a kid if they turn out to and like you.
Right.
So in having this conversation, when it comes down to the point of having children, it's hard to say that those are even can be because of those reasons. I don't think that those are even the factors that play into why you could have kids. Because I think what the question kind of boils down to is like, I guess, the ethics of creating another relationship for you to experience. Like another, because it's not just like another relationship. It's like a very like a viable relationship, you know. And what that is worth to you and your path, you know.
Right. Right. I mean, it does. It's gonna sound like I'm repeating myself, but there's new stuff to this. It does sound like just seems completely contradictory, you know. Because I even thought while you were talking that like, okay, if you like, let's say best case scenario, you have a soul and your kid has a soul, woohoo, right? Well, still that soul is like, it's not like, okay, a kid here is a stupid fucking guy, right? But a soul is an immortal piece of motherfuckerness. So it's like you're you're like on equal terms practically. You know what I mean? What I got like 20 years over you, you know, in terms of like a physical experience. All right, but it's like in terms of like my soul's immortal, your soul's immortal. It's been around for a fucking good long while, and so it's like both of our the way this ends for both of us is like in a lot of solitude in terms of like figuring out our own energies, going through the test slash experiences of this world, which are designed to show us what energies we value, which are, spoiler alert, our own, and to live in line with like the principles of creation in terms of not overextending yourself, not trying to be anyone else, not trying to push too hard, accepting the path, or accepting just knowing the beauty of the universe, non-duality, all that good shit. So then it's like, okay, that's my goal, and that's also my kid's goal, because it's the best case scenario where both of us have souls. Alright, well then, it's still like, you still gotta like do all that. So then it's like, you know, I don't know, it's like not even the good scenario even in that scenario. You know what I mean? Like it's not helping us at all, because it's like ultimately we still do have to do all of this stuff ourselves. So it's like, what value do you bring to my experience here? It's like, okay, you can be cool and I can like you, you know what I mean? But it's like, what does that actually like do for my experience here? And maybe it could do something, but it just seems like
Well, I can answer that question. It's like in this world, everything is like in a veil. You know, everything is like, it seems so similar, but nothing is what it seems. Like it's just one big hall of mirrors, and everything looks like the glass part. You know what I'm talking about?
mm.
You know the glass part? It's like they got the mirrors and the glass part that you like run into and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And because like because like there's this like fun little illusion around everything,
Mm-hmm.
including everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when I look at things, I'm looking at the glass, the see-through part, the illusion. When I'm looking at people, I'm looking at the mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, regardless of where you turn in this world, you're going to be confronted with some sort of illusion or distortion, regardless of what you're investigating. It is going to be impacted by illusion or distortion.
Definitely.
And the kind of illusion or distortion you receive is, well, dependent on what you're looking at. So that's, to me, that distinction is things and people. To me, I find fun in identifying the locus of the illusion. You know, figuring out what's what. Because there's, as you said, like, it's all coded down to math.
Right.
And once you're like able to identify the values, like detect the movement of the stars, like you know how it works, you know. And when you look at things, you look at glass. When you look at people, you look at mirrors. And so the mirrors show you the illusion in yourself. Mirrors make you look at yourself. The glass does that, sure, but like, only in like a metaphorical way.
Mm-hmm.
But a mirror really fucking shows you yourself. You're looking at someone's eyes, like, you're looking right at yourself. Oh man. And it's the same eyes. You know? Everyone's got the same eye. It's the same black fucking hole at the center of your soul.
I'm hearing you.
And it's just what a magnificent investigative apparatus people are. That's what I feel. It's like, this fucking world. It's so fucked up. I mean, the world by itself, it's fine, but everything's killing everything, and everything comes out of each other's ass, kicking and screaming,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever, what have you. People are fun. People are chegga fun, man, and they make it entertaining.
That's for sure.
It's like, who the fuck would want to come here if this was an empty server, bro? Play around in the mud.
People do some darnest things.
But we came for the RP, bro. That's for sure.
But
This is a sick RP in this lobby.
I'm hearing you. I mean, yeah, the kid could like fulfill.
Fuck a kid for now, because I'm just talking like,
Yeah, I feel it. Yeah, I was
why
thinking.
even look at someone and go that?
Hmm.
Like, why even bother? Right? Like, fuck a kid. I'm talking about like your mom or your neighbor, bro. Like, the very least, very least.
Yeah.
Like if you're not gonna like fucking, if you're not gonna like, if it's not gonna be a kid, fine. But like, there is a realm for these things in the family. Like,
Oh, definitely. I
you know what I
mean,
mean? Like that having like, you can look at a kid. It's like, okay, yes, that's another attachment. That's fine. But everything around you is already going to be an attachment. If that's like, if that's how you look at the mirror.
yeah, if that's an imbalance that you have in yourself, then it's definitely going to be expressed in your
Right.
external. Given that, there are allegorical, like, you can make decisions in regards to that. You can make decisions in regard to, I'm going to be authentic. Like, say you have an attachment with a person, you're like, I'm going to be authentic and I'm going to say how I feel, and our relationship will change or will end, and it doesn't matter how they feel because I have to prioritize, like, what I feel most. Or I have to prioritize what I can genuinely say is most healing. And like being in this energetic configuration is like not most healing, right? And you have the choice to do that. And there will be allegorical decisions to be made in regards to that. To all kinds of people, family and, lovers and friends that, are not helpful anymore. Just, but with the child, you just can't. I know we're not talking about kids, um, but yeah, just like with the kid, you can't do that. You literally just cannot do that. It's a unique, like highly unique case in that way where it's like,
I understand what you're saying, too, because it's not all fun and games with people. Like, you don't just get to dance around them and fucking, like, look at them with a fucking microscope. Like, there's an energy interchange. And, but, like, the people around you, like, you're going to have to, like, go through some form of compromise with these fucking, like, wooden dolls. Just
yeah,
so,
exactly.
like,
Your consciousness has to,
not your fucking throat slit in the middle of the night.
yeah, yeah, because you got to go down to whatever is your lowest common denominator. You have to match their energy. Because otherwise, they just don't understand you. And if they don't understand you, there's no, like, anything to be had.
Yes.
So it's like, a lot of it does become like, are you willing to live in solitude if it means preserving your energy?
And when it comes to a kid, it's like, since we're talking about like staking, like you do have to like bring your energy down to the lowest common denominator, but you do also have to stake your sovereignty within that like exchange. Like having a kid is like a direct violation of that boundary at stake.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why for me, it's like literally a fate fucking, like, it's equivalent to spiritual depth. Equivalent to spiritual death. Like, because you can't, like, you have to stay in this configuration and you can't leave.
But
it's worse than fucking jail. At least in jail it could be real.
you can't leave.
Huh?
What do you mean by you can't leave?
Well, I mean, you can't just like throw them into a dumpster somewhere, or you're gonna get arrested, or you're gonna have to pay alimony and think about it for the rest of your life.
Sure. For a solid 20 years, you can't leave. For a solid 20 years, you're in it for 20 years. It's a 20-year contract, guaranteed.
And then at that point, if there's gonna be any like fucking crumbs of spirituality left after all that shit, then it's like, well, you're already like bound to him. It's like,
That's not true. That's not true at all. That's not true at all. Where you're just gonna become a fucking idiot when you have a kid? You're just gonna turn retarded?
Yeah.
No.
Probably.
No, dude. Let me tell you this much.
Energetically.
If you're spiritual, if you think you're spiritual now, try having a kid. Let's see what that does to your fucking spirit. It is going to awaken, because you have this, like, it's this grand magnificence of investigation every single fucking day, bro. It's not okay. Yes, you're right. You do have to fucking deal with a little fucking pooper running around the house, but like, it's just a thing. Every person in the world reports it. Every single person in the world reports it, whether they're real or not. You have a kid, and like, your perspective on everything changes.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. And yes, you could see that as a spiritual death. Maybe you're theorizing that your perspective changes into the beastly world, and that you are forever doomed. But it allows you to analyze your existence in a way you never could otherwise.
Surely. It's like, I can't really, I just don't have experience on it, so I can't say, But I could definitely, like, I'm imagining it.
Like, and it's not spiritual enough at all.
Like, you'd have to shape up real quick.
Evolution is what I see it as an evolution. It's the depth of what you are up until that point, for sure.
Right.
But truly, the spirit cannot die, especially when it's jammed inside of a fucking meat suit.
No, definitely. I mean, it's like, it's just a spiritual on hold. It's not real, like, you're never gonna actually spiritually die, but it is like a spiritual. It's like horny jail. Go to horny jail for 20 years.
You think of it like this too, like, it's like all for one. No, one for all. So it's like stockpiling, bro, over time. Like, you're counting stocks, bro. Your investments are going up, like, big time. And like, yeah, it's a 20-year contract. If you're good, if you're nice with it, it's like a 15-year contract. Or if you fucked up like my parents, it's a 30-year contract.
If it's a boy, then it's like it could be like a 15-year contract. If it's a girl,
or if you're rich enough, then the contract is like, then you can pay the contract no problem, and you and then you have no problem. If you're rich enough, it's no problem. It really is no problem. Then it's like, fuck it, send that little shit to school. Who cares? Do I care? No, send him away. I'll be like, you're like homeschooling this motherfucker for like 15 years, and you have another kid, it's a girl, and you gotta make sure she doesn't touch you boys. And then the third kid, you're just like, fuck it, yeah, alright, fine. Send him to school, I have money. I don't care.
Yeah.
Who cares? Who cares? What are they gonna say, you're a deadbeat dad? Yeah, fuck you, I'm a deadbeat dad. We're gonna do pay child support, here you go.
You know what it is? It just adds, what else is another way to phrase it? It just adds monumental layers of complexity to what could be a very simple life. And
I know what you mean.
And I learned that if it's complex, it's not really fucking worth it. It's like, keep it as simple as possible is the chillest, is the, you just feel...
The people who have most success in the path, in my experience, are the people that drop kids.
Yeah, right.
But the thing is, this is what we predicated at the beginning of this conversation, is you don't see people with kids floating out of their bodies, but you also don't see niggas out here floating out of their bodies. So who's to really say?
Exactly. So that's why it's like it would be easy. Then it would be easy. But now it's you have to examine all these things on your own and what kind of stuff you value, and maybe for some people they might value that. But just in terms of what I see ascension as, the whole point, this world, the kind of energies we're taught to, value, and such as simplicity, such as sovereignty, such as freedom to engage in whatever consciousness you want, interact with whoever you want or not, all these things, then having a kid is completely contradictory to all that. At least on the surface, it's like absolutely like the complete opposite of all of that, as far as I can see. But I imagine if somebody does have a kid, then they probably would undergo big changes in their consciousness, and then shortly after probably plateau real fast as it once again becomes monotony. Except now it's monotony that is inescapable.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I would see it.
Well, I would, I think personally, I think you would have a very good relationship with your child. I think you would have a very good relationship with your child. I know I would have a very good relationship with my child.
Oh yeah, it'd be I would.
So like the pain, I don't
think I
think
would.
it's exactly also like the pain of having a child that deters you, or I for that matter, from wanting to do it. I think it boils down to like what you said, which is like it's like this installation of complexity into your fucking like your sphere.
Exactly. You're already complex enough. We're already complex enough, and what the fuck do we do? A whole bunch of nothing? Not a whole bunch of nothing, but like, not like fucking figuring out how to not vaccinate my kid and where to live and what's the best place to live and who's he going to interact with and how much should I interact with him and how much should I lead him. Maybe he should do this on his own. Maybe I should monitor his friends or maybe I shouldn't. It's like your whole life just would be eaten up by that complexity,
I think, as far as you are concerned, that factor is like, given that I think we've reasonably isolated that factor as like the most defining variable for kid or no kid. Personally, I think that factor is like, given you or I's future, a very, very like malleable factor on whether or not that could be worth it or not.
Complexity?
All that activity. What did you say?
You meant complexity as the factor?
Yeah, like all that activity, all that complexity. Like, I think what we boiled it down to is whether or not, like, in engaging in all that complexity is, at the end of the day, worth it, and how much energy you expend and where it's expended.
I mean, it's going to be at least, like, baseline, it's going to be, like, at least 3 times as complex as what you've got going on now.
I'm definitely not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. It makes things crazy.
It might be 10 times more as complex, but I don't even want it to be 1.5 times more as complex. But it's minimum, like, 3.
Like, you and I are already like constantly teetering on the edge of madness, and I don't think more chaos and madness like, would possibly help the situation.
Yeah, exactly. And just boils down to, at the end of the day, who's got themselves figured out? Do I think Sebastian's got himself figured out to make the optimal kid? No. Fuck no. I don't think anyone does.
Like, I think it's fair to say if you or I have a kid, at no point will we have a kid because we feel like we need to. Like, that situation would never occur. It's like, so a lot of people do this, and this is one of the very wrong reasons we have a kid, because they feel like they need to fucking do it to complete themselves like a fucking idiot.
Yep. Or by accident, which is more often the fucking case.
That sucks, but fuck it, bro. Happens by accident, it's like...
I mean, it's usually that. It's like usually, literally, people just fucking have kids. But whatever, we're talking about NPC retards, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's like, no one really, like, I don't know. No one thinks about the kid. It's like everyone's like doing it for themselves. Or by accident. Like, it's literally either by accident or they're just like...
No, nobody has a kid. No, you don't have kids for the kids, bro.
You have kids for yourself, just because, like, it's a thing to do.
That's a very good point. I don't think I've ever said that in my mind before, but that's very true.
Because if they were thinking about the kid, they'd think about how he's fucking gonna go to school and turn to a tranny and fucking get vaccinated and eat cheeseburgers. No one thinks about the fucking kid. They think about...
Everyone who has a kid says the same thing. I want to have a kid so badly. I'm just worried about bringing a kid into this world.
Right, yeah.
So ultimately, the decision people make to have a kid is this statement. The tragedy and suffering of bringing you into this world was not enough to stop me from what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
You my firstborn child.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but okay. That being said, I don't think it's unfair to say that that factor is malleable in the way you and my future looks. That whether or not that complexity would be worth it as something to expend your energy on. I don't think that's it's unreasonable to suggest that you or I would have more than enough energy to engage in that arrangement. Because a lot of people suffer with children because they, one, have no spiritual development, two, have no money, three, have no emotional connection to themselves, or have, in unresolved relationships with their parents, basically retards. Retards have kids. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it's like, retards have kids, so retards have kid problems. Basically. But also retards have girlfriends, and retards have girlfriend problems, and I had some of those, but that's because I was girlfriends with a retard.
Everyone's learning. This is just not a lesson I feel I have to learn. I feel like having a kid, the only lesson you need to learn is that this shit sucks.
There's no lesson, it's just an experience, and it doesn't suck. It doesn't suck. Believe me, it doesn't suck.
Or you'd know how that feels, but then there's also other things.
You know what's another thing about this? Think about all the ways in which your parents did you wrong.
Wait, I had something to reply to before about the complexity too. So we don't move away from that too fast. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
Alright, I was just gonna say think about how all the ways in which your parents raised you wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And did you wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And think about all the ways in which you would not repeat those things.
Mm-hmm.
If you had a kid, how much better would make things?
No, our kids would BTFO every fucking kid on the block. That's obvious. That's so obvious.
Especially if our kids were friends with each other.
Dude, those kids would all get fucked up. Literally, they'd all, perish, so easily. All the other kids. No, that's too true.
Anyways, go back to the complexity. I just want to make that point. That's it's not what you described. It really is not what you anticipated. Maybe it sounds bad because I can't know how bad it is because it's your experience at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? But objectively speaking, it's pretty fucking awesome experience. But at the end of the day, skydiving is an awesome experience, and not everyone likes to jump out of an airplane. So
I say, to the complexity, I want to reply to that, but also say the thing that I wanted to say was that for me personally, I've discovered that I do not like to introduce any bit of complexity. Any amount of complexity that's more than what I have right now does ultimately drag my mind into illusion. From an energetic perspective. Any amount. Any amount of more responsibilities, more.
I need a second.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I'm gonna call the front gate.
Yeah.
Hi, Rick. My name is James Wagner. I live on 2965 Hammock Way. I just wanted to let you know that I have two guests coming. They'll probably be arriving in about 5 minutes. Their names are Octavius and Zaid. Yes, sir. Nailed it. I know, funny name. They'll be there in like 5 minutes. I'll be here for 3 days. Wagner, W-A-G-N-E-R. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Bye. Okay, now I'm just going to call Zaid. No problem, I just called the front gate. Very much, sir. You heard? No problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's like any degree of complexity in my mind is just something that would push me further into illusion. Because I like my mind to be nice and clear and simple, because the truth is simple. And it's nice to just be chill and simple, you know? So, sure, we could handle it. We could handle anything. We could handle getting stabbed in the fucking face. Like, we can handle anything. But do I want to? No, I don't. You know? If somebody else values complexity and thinks it's worth it, then cool. But in terms of like an allegorical, like, I can't say that more complexity and dragging my mind into more illusion and binding with like putting serious emphasis on physics. Yeah.
Yeah, take it off. Yeah, no problem. I was saying on your other line that I called the front gate and they're going to. Yeah. There's a white sign that says Wednesday on it. Big white sign. There's gonna be lights on it too. You can't miss it. Big row of trees, all. Yeah. If you just drove by this small little gate, then it's gonna be the next time. Yeah. Uh, just hang out for a second. Let me hear you that. Mikey, we're gonna be here in like 5 minutes. Just wanna let you know.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, we're pretty much done so. But yeah, I'll just say that like for a minute.
You're muted.
I hear something.
Yeah, you're muted. I just want to make sure you're going.
Oh, okay. It's like from a allegorical perspective of like if something is putting me into more illusion, like if something is introducing more complexity in my life and that's creating more illusion in my consciousness, then it cannot possibly be healing for my soul. Unless it's an experience that like it is ultimately illusory, and so you might want to go through an illusory experience to like learn from it, but it is still ultimately illusory and is not something that like should be created if it doesn't have to be.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so it's like
it shouldn't have to be created. It shouldn't be created if it doesn't have to be. I like
Yeah.
that.
And if it is created, then that meant it had to be, but, you know. You know how that goes. But it's like, it's still ultimately illusory. And it's like, the fact that it does introduce that layer of complexity, the fact that it does introduce, like, those bindings to the physical, bindings with other people, and, limits, places you in certain parameters that you wouldn't have otherwise. And then, like, your questioning of, like, how much you can go past these parameters is, like, all that complexity, just for me, allegorically, doesn't make sense that it's healing for my soul. And that's what we're here to do, is heal our souls. So it's like, could be fun, could be fine. People could have a lot of fun with it. But would it be healing for my soul? Don't think so. Ultimately,
Fair enough. Fair. That's fair. I don't think there should be something. I don't think there should be serious attachments placed on, like the reasons to have a kid. I don't think should be serious. I think it should be nothing more than a frivolous exploration. If it's treated any differently, then like you lose.
I feel you. And, yeah, I mean, because everything here is experimental at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
The experiments aren't always fun or worth it. Or they're always worth it.
Alright, these are way around the corner.
Alright, I got you,
Say
brother.
hi.
Nah. Alright, good.
We'll be here in like 10 seconds, so at this point you're gonna say hi.
Yeah, alright. Alright, then I'm gonna stop the recording.